I'm Paul Melrose, Assisting Pastor for Pastoral Care at First United Methodist Church in Madison, Wisconsin. Today, before I go into my devotion, which I'm calling How Is It With Your Soul?, I'm eating a little humble pie and offering an apology. I'm a little embarrassed. My last devotion, one in the series of occasional devotions inspired for me from Broadway shows, mentioned a song and a play. The song Easy is Hard, which was the inspiration for some of my thinking the last time I was with you. But the play which I cited is not the play from which the song is from. I was referring to the play Godspell, when in fact the play from which the song comes is Hair. And so I do deeply apologize. Those of you who are Broadway fans were very kind not to email me or in some other way bring that to my attention. So I wanted to mention that as we go forward. I was aware of that mistake. But in the meantime, maybe that's why I came up with this title today. How is it with your soul and with mine? Several times in almost as many days, somebody somewhere on TV, on a news broadcast, even in church in some of my readings, has raised questions as to the soul of our nation. John Meacham wrote a book several years ago with almost that exact title. There are so many of us right now that are deeply, deeply concerned about our public life. Where is it going? And at the same time, maybe even our religious life, where we thought we had companions, collaborators, brothers and sisters and siblings. We may find we're in competition, that we're working with people around people going in exactly opposite directions, that we can no longer talk to each other. Our personal lives do get dragged into both of these realities as we are people and citizens of this nation and of this world. And it then adds another layer to our own specific internal and relational issues and concerns in our lives. If we think of the soul as the center of our national life, in a sense, where our thoughts and our values and our morals and our policies lay, what so many see around us is just gut-wrenching. Increasingly, our country seems to be a place of competing souls. Sometimes one branch even of our own denomination is so set in one set of ways that it's hard to even be open to be in fellowship with another. There's science versus politics, truth versus alternative facts, illness and death versus a sense of personal and some might say pride or self-aggrandizement to think that each one of us can tough it through a major health crisis, all against the background, of course, of the COVID-19 pandemic. John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, and somebody to whom I've referred several times in sermons and devotions and elsewhere, asked his preachers, "How is it with your soul?" Wondering as they undertook their journeys in ministry how they were faring. How did things go with the people to whom they were in ministry? How was it for them in their own lives as they carried the burdens and the joys and the sorrows and the privileges and the responsibility to be the bearer of God's love to their congregations and to the world? Inviting them, urging them to look deep inside, if you will. What did they find there in their own souls? Was it despair or hope or faith or love or joy or fear or anger or depression? Indeed, was God there? Alone or feeling a part of the community of faith? Were they feeling alone, or were they feeling that they were part of God's beloved, part of the church, part of the beloved community? I had a wonderful chat just recently with an older member of our congregation here in Madison, one to whom I had reached out and returned my call in just a very few minutes. With her soul, with her, while she lives alone and seldom goes out except once a month for food and weekly to bank, each time with one of her children, she described her life in terms of satisfaction. She misses her children, other than these singular visits. She misses grandchildren and great-grandchildren and getting out. Many of her church friends, she told me, have died or moved away. But all that seems okay. And one of the important things in her life is that she's able to get to church, which she had always done on Sunday. Indeed, being a member of First Church here in Madison for over 50 years, she's benefited from our new sermon by phone ministry. It is at least pretty darn good with her soul, was the message that she gave me. A moment such as this helps me and my soul. She shared her life in such a way that I could pick up on the satisfaction, the sense of looking forward to weekly outings, the way that she had looked forward to them, and that the okayness with all that, the satisfaction, exuded a kind of joy. Now, I'm not an easy answer kind of guy, but there's something really wonderful in this. Even as I recognize the extremely hard and tough stuff and major issues affecting the lives of so many of us directly, and because it affects one, it affects all of us, though maybe some indirectly. Our ministry through Christ to the world and to each other. Where is that ministry when it is not well with our soul? That is a question for us and right now for our churches and for our nation. Because how it is with our soul guides us as to the path of life and of faith we are on. It is either a path of me first, I'm number one, and others like me protecting what we've got and expect others to resource us so that life becomes focused on the few to the detriment of the many, or it is the path of God's love for all, so that even the least feel God's love for them and care in what is needed to live in a full and complete life, in empathy and compassion, and working together, all being one, all of God's people, forming, if you will, a more perfect union. We're not there yet. For when our soul is well in these ways and the souls of others, then the souls of nations, the soul of the church, all of these are aligned for the goodness of God's creation, God's people, God's world. Horatio Spafford, to share a brief vignette of a story, was a successful lawyer in Chicago in 1870. But that year, this prosperous lawyer, devoted husband, and a father experienced a great tragedy. His only son died of scarlet fever, a young child at the age of 4. And then the next year, he lost everything in the Great Chicago Fire. As he gradually recovered and his family continued to grow, he decided it would be good to send his wife and daughters off on a trip to England to see an old friend because of a business concern he had to follow at a later time. The ship with which his wife and daughters were passengers on, the Ville de Havre, collided with another vessel and it sank. In the crash, the daughters were lost at sea. Only Horace's wife survived. As soon as he could, Horatio, he left the U.S. for England to join his wife there. And as he sailed, one night on the sail, the captain called him to the bridge and said, "This is where we think the Ville de Havre went down." It was shortly after that, according to another child that came later, that Stafford wrote the hymn, whose lyrics I will share with you now. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control that Christ has regarded my helpless estate and hath shed his own blood for my soul. My sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious thought, my sin, not in part but the whole, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, O my soul. And Lord, Haste the day when my faith shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. These encouraging and uplifting words were born from an imaginable sorrow. Such is the love of God for all of God's people. Blessings to you this day.